You walk into a room, you have something incredibly important to say or do. And then it's just gone, and you're standing there, mouth slightly open. Looking like your brain just blue screened in front of everyone. Like trying to grab fog with your hands. This happens to you, probably more than you'd like to admit. And most people just laugh it off. Oh, I'm so forgetful, they say. Like it's a personality thing. Almost as if they prefer forgetting things, for fun. But what's actually happening in your brain in that moment? It's so much more than just bad memory. And understanding it changes how you see yourself. So let's actually talk about what's really going on. Your brain isn't a hard drive. So it doesn't store everything neatly in folders you can access on demand. Memory, especially the kind involved in remembering what you were just about to say, is an active process. That gets interrupted constantly by the sheer volume of information your brain is managing at any given second. You're not forgetting because something's wrong with you. Instead, it's that your brain made a completely rational executive decision to drop that thought in favor of something it deemed more immediately relevant. The infuriating part is that it does this without asking you. This is called perspective memory failure. The breakdown of your intention to do or say something in the near future. And it's different from the kind where you can't remember where you were born or what you had for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago. Perspective memory is fragile because it requires your brain to hold an intention in working memory while simultaneously doing something else. Walking, listening, navigating a conversation, and working memory has a capacity that is embarrassingly small. It can hold roughly 4 chunks of information at a time. 4, that's it. You open a new tab in your head and something else gets closed. Now here's where it gets physical, and I mean that literally. In 2011, psychologists at the University of Notre Dame ran a series of experiments where participants moved between rooms, either physically or virtually, and what they found was striking. People forgot significantly more after walking through a doorway than they did after walking the same distance within a single room. The doorway itself was acting as what's called an event boundary, a psychological dividing line where your brain files away the previous context and opens the new one. Your brain interprets moving through a doorway as the beginning of a new episode. In a very real sense, it's trying to keep your mind organized, and in doing so, it pushes aside what you were just thinking about. So when you walk from the kitchen to the living room and immediately forget why you went, that's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, just at deeply inconvenient timing. But let's pause for a second, because this isn't only about doorways. The same thing happens mid-sentence. You start a thought, someone interrupts you, or your attention flickers just slightly towards something in your peripheral vision, and suddenly the second half of your sentence has evaporated. People who experience this frequently tend to be high cognitive load individuals, meaning their brains are managing a lot of parallel threads at once. Not because they're disorganized, quite the opposite actually. Often, it's people whose minds are running several layers of thought simultaneously. What they're saying on the surface, what they actually mean underneath that, how the other person is receiving it, what they need to say next. There's also an anxiety component that's worth noting. When people are in a heightened emotional state, even mildly so, even the low-level social anxiety, that comes from just being around other people. The prefrontal cortex takes a hit. Stress hormones like cortisol interfere with the very neural pathways you need to retrieve a thought. So the more you care about not forgetting something, the higher the stakes feel, the more likely you are to lose it. Your anxiety about forgetting actively causes the forgetting. That loop is cruel in a way that feels almost personally targeted. Let me know if that's ever happened to you. And can we just briefly acknowledge how unhinged the actual experience is? Because the moment it happens, you do the thing. You know the thing. You go, it was right here. I literally just had it, while gesturing vaguely at the air in front of you, as if the thought is physically hovering nearby and just needs to be scooped back in. And then someone goes, "Was it about the thing we were talking about earlier?" And you say, no, it was different. But you don't actually know that. You're just buying time, hoping the thought swims back on its own. There are things that genuinely help though, and they're less obvious than one might expect. Going back to the physical location where you had the thought works surprisingly often. Context-dependent memory means the environmental cues present when you formed the intention can help you bring it back to mind. Walking back into that room isn't you admitting defeat, okay? It's using your brain's own architecture against it. Saying your intention out loud the moment you form it, even quietly to nobody, creates an additional pathway that doesn't rely on working memory alone. And the one that people resist most is writing it down immediately. Not in 5 minutes. Not when I get there, right now. Because your brain will not hold it. And you know this about yourself. And yet. And then comes the moment after, the one where you're sitting quietly 10 minutes later, and the thought floats back completely unprompted, crystal clear, like it was never gone. That's because your brain didn't erase the thought, it just stored it away and assumed you didn't need it anymore. When your mind relaxes, it becomes easier to find again. The memory was always there, you just couldn't access it temporarily. What does all of this say about you specifically? If this happens to you often, and I mean the mid-sentence losses, the doorway amnesia, it likely says that you are carrying more mental weight than you're giving yourself credit for. It says your brain is working hard, maybe too hard, across too many things at once, and it's making triage decisions constantly. It's prioritizing, imperfectly, infuriatingly, but it is trying to manage something complex. The people who never forget what they were about to say don't necessarily have superior memory. They're frequently the people with fewer, simultaneous mental demands. So, the next time you're mid-sentence and the thought dissolves, and you're standing there doing that thing where you tap your temple like it'll help, now you know what's actually happening. Your brain just crossed an event boundary, hit a capacity limit, made a triage call without consulting you. It's not a sign of aging. It's a very human, very explainable symptom of being someone who is carrying more mental threads simultaneously than most people realize.